He's got two little trophies of his own. Join him.
490 BC, a great battle raged on the plains of Marathon. The Greeks were defending their home. The Persians were invading. Soon, the Athenians were pushing the Persians back to the sea, and a lone runner was sent to Athens to inform the city that they had prevailed. He ran 26 miles in about 3 hours. Arriving at the palace, he delivered his message. "We are victorious," at which point he collapsed and died. Throughout the centuries, we have looked at this as a good thing. But not Ken Kloiber. Running marathons is for sissies. No, he created a race that is 4 times as long, that starts at 10,200 feet, rises to 12,600 twice. He calls that race the Leadville 100, and I'm here for the 9th year to warn you about this. Our goal as a medical team is to keep you alive. The second goal is to keep you finishing, to allow you to finish this race. There are a number of issues which can come up. During these 9 years, I've been the medical director for many of the years. I've run the race twice. I've done Leadman a couple of times. I am certifiably crazy. I am one of your people. But here you are amongst your friends, and your friends are the ones that will keep you alive. Take care of one another. Your race crews are a wonderful savior. That is our #1 activity in our emergency action plan to keep you going, is using one another to help take care of each other. It has helped out many times. So please, it can be not very dramatic, such as one year I was coming up from Twin Lakes on the way to train line. And there was a runner sitting on a tree stump, looking down at his feet. I pointed out to him that this was not a designated aid station. Eventually, he got up, started walking, and he made it to tree line safely. So never leave anybody out there. It can be dramatic, where you have to deliver medical care to one another, and that's where before the official medical team gets there, you guys are who keeps each other alive. One of the other issues that will not let you finish this race are blisters. We have seen epic blisters in this race. There are blisters that the only way you can take care of it is put duct tape on the bottom of the foot, because nothing else will stick. But if you prevent the blisters, that's far better off. So please, it might be having some backup shoes, that when you're feeling it get hot, stop and tighten your shoes. Changing socks, have some plan, because if you can prevent it, your day will be much better. There are another 4 items that are all tied in together. It's hydration, it's nutrition. There's nausea and vomiting and cramping. But notice I didn't say dehydration, because more of you will run into trouble with overhydration and hyponatremia, low sodium levels. So there was well-intentioned research in the 1980s that talked about prehydration and staying ahead of your thirst. Well, that got extrapolated to the point that we cause many problems. There are many more injuries and deaths from overhydration than from dehydration. There is an international consensus meeting. The 3rd meeting of it was published this year. It's an international consensus for hyponatremia. The end result of that meeting, which was published last month in the Clinical Journal of Sports Medicine, was this: if you are thirsty, drink. If you are not thirsty, don't drink. So, that is far less complex than trying to keep track of what alarm it is on your watch and when you're supposed to have the 3 ounces of whatever solution you're drinking. If you're thirsty, drink. Which means in the morning, when it's 38 degrees and you're cold and you're only drinking a liter every couple of hours, That's okay. In the middle of the day when it gets hot, you will need to drink more. Now you'll also lose some sodium, so having some salt replacement is a good idea. It can be in the form of capsules, salt on your food, but this is where it ties into the cramping. There's this misconception that salt will stop cramping. But there's a lot of other fairy tales in the world too that you don't necessarily have to believe. Now cramping is important, but cramping is way more complex than just salt. So what happens is that's where it's tied into nutrition. Such as a lot of you are under the conception that this is a running marathon. It is not. It is an eating marathon with some running thrown in. Your body does best with simple carbohydrates. You may have trained on a pure paleo diet and you ate nothing other than woolly mammoths. But tomorrow, for the next 30 hours, however long it takes, your body will love simple carbohydrates. That is what it metabolizes the best while you're exerting yourself. If you eat the same diet when you're not running this distance, you will get really chunky. So that's where your diet varies between training and running. But simple carbohydrates, the amount of calories that you actually will need to consume is about 500 calories an hour, about 65 to 90 grams of carbohydrate an hour. No one can consume that much. So you will start to fall behind, and that's where we use our fat stores in order to do that. Isn't that great? We can all get really thin by running a long distance. However, that's the science of what happens. So if you take off too soon in the morning because you feel like you're full of energy, and those of you that are really smart are all using a heart rate monitor in order to keep track of this, because everybody feels good. But if you feel good with a heart rate of 190, you have about 2 hours until it all blows up. So that's where sometimes your perceived exertion isn't exactly the accuracy that you want to keep track of. So what you want to do is, if you see your heart rate too fast, dial it down, back it down, because you want to stay below your lactate threshold so that you're burning fat, so that you're not accumulating lactic acid. It's not the lactic acid that's a bad thing. Your body recycles that lactate into ATP through the mitochondria. But what happens is this metabolic process drops the pH of the muscle because of the hydrogen ions. And that pH, when it drops, that's what causes a cramping. And that's where, if you can keep your exertion below your lactate threshold for the entire race, that might help stop your cramping. But if you do cramp, it won't kill you. You can keep going. It hurts real bad. The supplement that's out there that tastes pretty hot is actually a good method of helping you not perceive the cramping. But that's where, don't think that you can prevent it by taking too much sodium. Because if you do, that will also throw off your electrolytes. That will also make you nauseated. And that also is one of the reasons why you can't continue to eat. Because if you can't eat, you can't run. So if you do start throwing up, and one time I was on top of Hope Pass coming back around, I was on my knees, I was vomiting. I remember this lemon lime gel projecting into each body. So far I couldn't believe it. One of my other fellow runners was taking care of me and said, "Would you like to try this Pepto-Bismol?" And I said, "Will it work?" He said, "I don't know, but if it will make you stop making those horrible sounds, I'm willing to let you have it." I threw up, I felt better, I kept eating, and I continued on and finished the race. So that's where you will be able to just keep on going while you're able to do that. As you see, all of those are tied together. But when you cramp, when you hurt, you will really want to take something to stop the pain. And we have a desire to take ibuprofen. One of the studies we did at this race was looking at the use of ibuprofen. And at that time, that 60% of runners were using it. We've now dropped it down to about 30%. But let me tell you what ibuprofen does. You're exerting yourself. You're tearing muscle down. You're having muscle breakdown products spikes in myoglobin, the creatine kinase is elevated, your fluid levels are a little low, your kidneys are working as hard as they can. One dose of ibuprofen at the wrong time will shut the blood supply off to your kidneys and push you in something called exertional rhabdomyolysis, which may make you wind up in the hospital on renal dialysis for 10 days. That is not a good thing. So what happens is when you're hurting really bad, know that you are experiencing the pain and you are digging deep. Yes, this is it. Tylenol is okay to take because it's something that's metabolized in the liver, and that's safe to do. But any form of anti-inflammatories you want to avoid before, during, and immediately after the race. And that will give you a better life because it will last longer. And besides, sometimes it hurts so bad. One time I was coming through Twin Lakes, my family asked me if I wanted some Tylenol. I didn't. I wanted narcotics. Another thing that will make you not be able to finish is a temperature. It starts off cold. It will then get cold again. But sometimes it gets really hot halfway through the race. If it gets to be like 50,000 degrees to 1,000,000 degrees, which happens in a moment's notice in the form of lightning, that can really spoil your day. Lightning is not a theoretical risk in Leadville. It happens. If you are up above a tree line and it starts to lightning, squat down, don't sit on the ground, and pray in that position. It will get cold later on, so always have some rain gear with you. Something as simple as a trash bag that you can put under your shirt, it will keep you alive. You have to have something as a vapor barrier. If you have asthma, a little bit of allergic allergies, asthma is worse during this exertion. So make sure you have your albuterol inhaler, take your meds beforehand. But one of the other things that looks a lot like asthma is altitude. Believe it or not, there's not as many altitude injuries in this race as what you would imagine. The other things, as far as incidence goes, are much more common. But altitude's tough to tell because you feel nauseated. You have a headache. You're not breathing really well, which sounds like a lot of other problems. But each of the aid stations has pulse oximetry, and if you're questioning that, you can be checked and you can see what your oxygen level is. And that's where, if it looks like it's altitude related, we have abilities to take care of that at those aid stations. So these are some of the things that can keep you alive, keep you having a good race, and let you come back with a belt buckle to tell all your friends about. Thank you very much.